We recently have won a hackathon and a military hackathon in Austria, cognitive resilience. And we have a super expert in our team, Chris. And he says one of the biggest dangers of AI is that it is creating constant cognitive overflow. It's just creating cognitive load.
Welcome to the ReeThink Podcast with another episode, and with me I have today two guests. I have Christian and Aladar from Mindset Technologies. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi.
Hi, Christian.
Aladar, youngsters first.
Thank you. My name is Aladar Tepelea. I'm 36 years old. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mindset Technologies, and have met Christian more than 20 years ago. So it's been a long time partnership, beyond business, also a friendship, and we'll tell you more about that.
Yeah. Christian, I'm the co-founder, the CTO of Mindset Technologies. I should say I came up with the idea, and with the idea first. And Aladar came up with the idea at 1.1, so to say, because he instantly found it very interesting and also doable. Yes, we know each other for a long time from music, so we both play in the same band in Austria, in Eisenstadt, which is famous for music since Josef Haydn is coming from there. So yeah, this is the common background we share, and this is the point. We have a lot of common interests. That helps us with the big baby Mindset Technologies common interest.
Just for us to know, I know also the audience. So Aladar, you have a background in finance, and Christian, you have a background in neuroscience, applied neuroscience, right?
Exactly. So I started with psychology, and then I very quickly came to psychophysiology and finished the doctoral degree with a strong focus on neuroscience and neurology. So yes, I'm the neuroscientist in the game here.
Okay.
Yeah, on my side, it was always a strong interest in natural sciences from the very beginning at school. I did chemistry Olympics and things like that, but I was always terrible at the application side, made a big mess in the laboratory. But I was very interested in the theoretical side of things. So, how does the body work? How does matter work? So, biology, physics, chemistry was always interesting for me. But then I thought I'm better if I'm, just doing the simple calculus with Excel spreadsheets, coming from Vienna University of Economics, and stick to the simple stuff. And communicating about the more complicated stuff, but let the scientists do the science. And that's how Christian and I are a good fit.
Okay. Yeah, that's sounds amazing. I mean, it makes sense when you have a business together that there is one that maybe drives more the product side of things and one who drives more the business side of things. So it's a perfect match, therefore.
Actually, as you said now, you have the product, you have the business side, but the product is actually already in the business. Because what we are doing mainly is we're developing technology, and then we fit it as a product for the business and for the industry. So it's even better because 1 + 1 equals more than 2 in this case. So it makes much more sense.
Yeah, and just to let to have this understanding of how you met. So you were in a band and then you just clicked from the beginning, or what?
Yeah,
how was the?
I have a funny story about that actually. So Christian, he was a bit younger back then. He finished his PhD, and the brass band. So he plays first chair, I play second chair. So I always looked up to him like that in the musical space. And then he got his PhD, and normally we only play, a special song for someone that they wish for when they have their birthday. But on that day, when he got his, diploma, he could get another song, and I was like, oh my goodness, how can he get 2 songs in a year? Normally you only get one. And that made it kind of interesting for me. So I thought, oh, if you get a neuroscience PhD, then you get 2 songs a year. So there must be something.
That's the way to go. No, no music apps,
Yeah.
nothing. You just need to have a degree. That's all.
Okay, that's kind of fitting. It's interesting because at the end of the day, this is also one of the things I figured doing my podcast is how profound an effect has music on the brain and its possibility to be better in things like math and applied science. So it's interesting that you met via this form and founded a neurotech company. So it's kind of fitting.
I mean, it was years later actually, and but Aladar.
It gets even better, Rudi, because we don't mention it very much, but we actually do work with musicians, and musicians for us are in a way under similar amounts of stress like high performance athletes, and Christian can tell you a lot more about. But we very little talk about these research projects that we do. Because everyone wants to talk about race car driving and the jet fighter pilots and all that, but with what Christian said earlier about Joseph Haydn, and we have a kind of special musical center in Eisenstadt where we have done very interesting studies and got some insights that maybe Christian can tell something about in a nutshell.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there is a lot of similarity between a musician and, say, a esports computer guy sitting in front of the computer. When you just think of the movement of the fingers, you're always so impressed. Oh my God, they are so fast on the keyboard and with the mouse, and I don't know, 500 finger movements a second. It's no wonder that they burn out. With 18 years, they are vegetable actually. That's what the attitude also was in esports. You have young talents to train the whole day. They don't know that they also have to sleep. Puberty comes in. They get a little bit better, but then they get not very fit. Let's put it like this. And in the end, with 17, they're burned out. And I have a good friend in Korea, a professor for computer gaming. And he told me this, and I said, did you ever figure out why musicians don't fall into the same scheme? I mean, they train hard all day. They sit there. I know a lot of musicians from piano players, pianists to violin players, and they trained 4 a.m. before school, after school. So it was crazy, but it doesn't happen to them. So there must be something different. Yeah. And there's a difference, of course, in the attitude, in the burning the rubber, actually, definitely. So they have different ways of burning the rubber very early and burning out sometimes. And musicians are still under the same stress, and they face the same problems like Aladar said, sportsmen, also like basketball player, classic, when you choke under pressure. This is a classic phenomenon where you see, okay, I have to do, this is my shot now. I have to make it now. And the result is that you're over engaging. And what you're doing actually is you're recruiting too much force from your, bluntly said, brain energy. And that leads to a complete blackout. And you choke under pressure and it doesn't work anymore. You cannot do the movements that you are so used to do anymore. And that is the same with musicians. So when they're under this stress, they have big problem to keep their embouchure when they're trumpet players. So both play trumpet or bugle. And we know this from this study that Aladar mentioned at the Musical University in Eisenstadt and also in Vienna, that that is one problem. And the next problem is, to keep the motor activation of the fingers at a high level. And piano players are enormous at that, also violin players. So there is no excuse. Rubinstein was, I think, 92, and he still played very fast. So there's a lot of similarity there.
So it's also a metabolical problem. Because you mentioned the brain energy, maybe because I try to understand it more deeply. Because when you mention about that the energy is not there anymore, or they use up too much energy.
They don't use up, they use too much energy. They're over engaging their motor centers. If you think of the interplay between the cerebellum for this learned movements and the motor cortex, you see that with choking under pressure, you have a typical over-engagement of areas that are indeed responsible for the correct procedure and correct motor behavior, but they are over-engaged. They show too much activation, and that is the problem.
Is then the result that they are inflamed because of the
No, it's just a short overactivation. The effect is that you are not good at what you're doing, and normally you are, because you try too hard in this case.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes trying less hard is better. The typical flow phenomenon is a classic.
Yeah.
If you are on the flow, if you're in this zone or in the flow, you're not trying very hard because you cannot be on a high stress level and in the flow. It's not doable. You are in a zone because you're not in this high stress level. And choking under pressure is the opposite. And it's not like I try so hard that my patterns in the brain collapse. It's rather I try so hard that the patterns in the brain try harder, and they try too hard. And it's like if you have a small hose and a lot of water, and you try to bring it through, and it just doesn't work because it can't physically work. The same here.
Okay. I still have a hard time to really get it into the frameworks I do understand, because so far I never came across. But I think I have a grasp of the problem so far. But maybe can you walk us through what you have as a solution as mindset technology? So because for the time being, we spoke a bit about the problem. We spoke about racing cars and aviation. I think everybody likes that, including myself. But what is the actual technology and what it does in order to solve that problem you're just describing?
Well, in a nutshell, we help people to better understand themselves in very stressful environments where there's either low or zero tolerance for errors. And it can be various signals, and Christian can tell you a lot more about that, but you look at things like stress, learning ability, cognitive load. It depends also very much on who is the client, what are they trying to optimize, and then we adopt the way we capture the signals and the way we feed them back to the way that they need it.
Okay. Sorry,
Christian? Yeah, actually, we provide a biofeedback, and we called it in a book, in a publication, also Biofeedback 3.0, because it is creating insight, and that is the point here. Because the question is normally, why do I suck when the going gets tough? What is the problem? I don't understand myself. I don't know why I drive wonderfully in the simulator, and then all of a sudden when I have to race, I cannot do it. And the point is, what we're doing is we're measuring what's going on, we're feeding it back, and together with an expert, which is not us, because we're not the race car drivers or the musical teachers, but together with this expert, we create insight. And you see, that's the reason why. I try too hard. I have to calm down. I have to de-stress. My cognitive load is too high, which means I can only take one piece after the other. I cannot concentrate playing music on the pedals and on the keyboard, for instance. And this put together, having a great tailored measurement, depending on the case. It's different from race car driver to musician, of course. To a super instruction how to deal with this, what you could not measure before. The point is we make it visible what's going on.
Yeah.
Before that, you just said, why is this happening? And now we say, this is why it's happening. This is, you're in the red zone. You should be in the green, or you should be in the middle. You should be probably activated, but it should be pleasurable, actually. It should be a valence of being pleasurable, enjoyable, and not this stressful feeling.
Okay, I get it. And then in case of the race car driver, how do you get the signals?
So we have these various partners in the supply chain, and it's most of all the hardware partners. In this case, it's goggles, because it has to be variable. In other cases, it can be install-based cameras.
Mm-hmm.
But here, so we work with companies like Pupil Labs or Viewpoint System or Tobii or others who, with the augmented or virtual reality cameras, they help to capture not just where someone is looking, which is normally known as the classical eye tracking or gaze tracking, but also how they are looking. And the how makes a lot of difference, whether someone has a strong pupil dilation based on emotional reactions, or whether they have a lot of gaze jumps or blink frequency changes. So there's so many signals that the eyes are emitting that are very telling, but they're usually not captured and even less so interpreted and fed back to generate insights. Christian likes to bring this example, like 20 years ago, very few people had a pulse watch.
Yes.
And actually, he was one of the first people in Eisenstadt, our hometown, who had one.
I'm sure about that. Yeah.
And everyone was making fun of him back then, but today it's totally normal. And we believe that, the signals will become more and more granular. So we can capture more. So now that we can, the question is, what do we do with it, and how do we, help people to learn about themselves, to do better, to learn faster, to avoid accidents, and different customer bases have different scenarios.
Okay. So to summarize it, what I understood is basically that you provide like the software that is able to capture these signals and interpret them in a way that is becomes a measurable insight that tells, for instance, like, okay, based on the way the person, the race car driver or the pilot is looking, the people dilation, all these different measurables, I just call it biomarkers, have the result of, okay, this cognitive load is way too high in that situation, and now he's in certain zones that you define, and every use case is slightly different. So you also work with different hardwares, but your software is basically the interpretation layer, so to say, for these kind of signals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a super summary, and
yes,
you have it all. You have it all in there, and as you say, the setup is different sometimes. Most of the time, we propose the hardware for many reasons. If you think of a race car, we had so many. The correct word would be fuck up, but I don't say it. I just think it with cameras in the car, because a race car is loud, so audio is miserable. It's extremely hot. It's 70 degrees Celsius, so it's very hot. It's rattling, it's shaking, it's crazy. Many times our hardware broke. I mean, not totally, but we could not use it for this reason. So it was hard enough to find the hardware. Plus, you have a helmet. You need to fit it under the helmet, so not every device fits. That is the one case, the extreme case. And with, let's say, more benign cases like control rooms, cockpits, aviation cockpits, yeah, you don't have this problem. You just put in the hardware. If they say we have a wearable already, can we use this? We say yes, because as you said, we use the analytics part and the software and the feedback, but for the hardware part, if someone has a good hardware with a high resolution, it's nice. Just needs to have some standards for our analytics that we need, because we go beyond the typical analytics that you find together with the wearables. So we really look at the events of the eye on a very temporally high resolution, spatially high resolution, and we try to exclude as many artifacts as possible. It's always a little bit of artifacts in there. In the race car, it's a lot of artifacts, but normally we can get rid of them.
Okay, so with artifacts, just to be clear, you mean, for instance, like a shaking of the video, or maybe the video is not 100% crisp?
Exactly. So this is the one thing, or that you have that you lose race car many times. That the contacts just lose grip, and you have a lot of NaANs in there in the data where you can make no measurement. So you're just recording no data. That would be one way. But then it's more subtle as well. But that's not an artifact. It's just a miscategorization that you find in many other analytic softwares, and we compare it quality-wise with our software. One thing we notice is that the events are mislabeled. So, for instance, if we're looking at, we have 3 types of events. We have blinks.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the lid is closing a bit or fully, which is a difference, of course. We have a gaze, and the gaze means that something is happening in this period where we say we detect the gaze. And in this case, you have saccades and you have fixations. And actually, only during fixations you can take in information, because in a saccade you have a lot of retinal smear. It's just like so high speed, the eye is moving, that there is no information you could take in. But in fixation you can take in information. And that is something that needs to be qualified the right way. And this is where we put a lot of work in to have the right qualification of these events.
And these events, so when they are measured, is there a machine learning or an AI who does the labeling or amplifies the signal, or how can I imagine that?
Actually, it's the detection of the events is algorithmic. What though is AI? So we have that's very helpful, because when you're algorithmic, if you have just one person and you have the right model, it provides the right results. Plus, hallucination at this level is a catastrophe because the rest won't work. So we cannot allow hallucination at the level where you are detecting events. Others can do this. We don't do that. That's the one thing. But we use AI for tuning the filters, for instance. We need different filters depending on the temporal resolution, on the resolution of the device per se, also the spatial resolution of the device. And filters help enormously there with AI, and also, of course, for programming. It's extremely helpful, but it's more on this side, because the point is we always need to have a very good, actually, a configuration of the events we're looking at. And that means we need a good measurement. And for the good measurement, we're using AI to decide, is it a good measurement or not? So we use it for quality management purposes.
Okay. I think I get the grift, not the full extent of it, but
I would not tell you the full extent.
Okay.
That is a secret.
Okay, got it. But one thing that I'm super curious about is how you come from eye tracking to the translation of cognitive load. Because I know from one company in particular that they, and so far as I know, is that certain way you look there, this gives you an indication which parts of your brain are activated. And so if you can map it up correctly, you have an idea which areas are activated. But I'm curious, because this is also what I understood from them, whether this is correct or something else. I'm not 100% sure about.
It would be nice if it works that way. It's super nice, and there is a little bit of truth behind that. And I just assume that there is also a practical truth in it, because in techniques like NLP, for instance, neuro-linguistic programming, you're using actually the eyes as a sign of what the person is thinking, which is actually on a higher level the same assumption, that you have the position of the eye and the gaze direction shows something about which brain areas are engaged. We use a different model, and we use a model where we just put together one simple fact. If you are in a stressful situation, this is why high performance situations are interesting for us, where you need to take in a lot of visual information, like on the racetrack. What would be the ideal? Ideally, you would have a fixation all over the most significant points with the highest saliency to improve your performance. That would be the ideal. The worst thing it could be is that you close your eyes. So if your eyes are closed, catastrophe. You can't drive like this.
Yeah.
So, and what we're doing now is we're mapping between those two extremes, so to say. We have an algorithm that is calculating the necessary perception depth and bit rate that is necessary to understand the scene. That is one thing that's very important. So we're taking from this, let's say, from this bucket, and then we see, okay, now we have gaze at this point with fixations, and the fixations indicate that the person is engaged.
Yeah.
It's a fixation on the right place, so it's a high saliency. That means it's also useful, what the person is doing. We don't have tons of saccades because small saccades with short fixations show that a person is all over the place. It's like in the saying, all over the place, because you are all over the place. You're searching for signs, actually, signals. But since you have no knowledge, you cannot interpret them, and it's not signal, it's just data that you're processing. And that is something we can see because we have the statistics and the models and combinations of saccades, fixations, and eyelid closures. That's a multi-component model, and that is actually also this output. And this is what I say. I won't go deep into this, but the mixture of it leads us to cognitive load.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have perfect conditions, we can also do a pupil tracking, because pupil tracking is very closely related also to cognitive load.
Okay, so now I have a kind of a picture. So it's more in a way the resolution, one thing, what is going on, then map it with the gaze in a way, that meaning whether the eyes are shut or for instance, the racing driver is focusing on the apex when it's a curve. That means
Absolutely.
he's fully engaged. And then in addition to that, if you have the pupils, if they are extended or they are closely, then you have also probably the arousal state in addition to that. Is that
exactly?
Okay.
Yeah, super. And the point is with the pupils, and this is something that we could not do alone. We have a cooperation with a research player in Austria here, Research Studios Austria, and they have an algorithm where they can correct for the light influence. Because if you have pupil changes, 90% is light influence. And you have to just cancel that out. And this is why we also use that for verification of our models and to correct for light influence dilation or constriction of the pupil.
Okay, I got that. But one thing that I didn't hear so far, just correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't track any additional bodily sensations, just like the heart rate or something else?
Yes, we do. One thing that's very important for us to track for many reasons is the head movement. That was it's quite complicated if you really think through this. I don't know if you had a situation where you had to think of how this is mathematically expressed, but you have quaternions, and those quaternions, this movement of the head in space, for us, it's of course very important because the eyes sit in the skull, and if the skull moves, the eyes move. But that's not an eye movement; that's a skull movement. So we have to subtract that. So it's one of the not artifacts, but misclassifications of events that you find very often. So head movement is definitely extremely interesting. Head posture is extremely interesting. Just think of when someone puts the head on the side and says, okay, or on this side. I mean, it says something. There is information in there. And the same we do with body posture. So skeleton tracking is a way to go. Heart rate is on the device, so that's nothing that we have directly in the model. It's something that we have to import into the model. But heart rate variability is pretty interesting for cognitive load because it also varies highly with cognitive load. So we are in general. I'm an EEG guy. I come from EEG, so I'd like to do it all. But my experience with EEG is that's a really scary animal if it's outside the laboratory, because you just receive artifacts most of the time.
Okay. So it's more a technological problem than the measurement problem. Um, Getting, for instance, like in a pilot cockpit, the EEG. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could put it into a helmet, and I'm sure that there are not only ideas but also prototypes where you put EEG into the helmet. But nevertheless, you are talking about tiny signals. The good thing about eye signals is they are huge, and you can measure them with a camera. In the end, the eyes are part of the brain. They're the visible part of the brain. They are the most supple motorics you could ever imagine. That means if the supple motorics breaks down, also the not so supple motoric behavior will break down at some point. So it's an early indicator of what's going on. And with EEG, you're always in this problem that you have pressure here, pressure there. You are so full of artifacts.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of data. And in this case, AI is great, actually, for excluding artifact loading episodes.
That's so interesting. This is also what I have observed. For instance, are you familiar with the reality labs from Meta?
And I don't know. Probably familiar. I'm careful with familiar.
Yeah. So
if I don't know it all.
basically,
I heard about it, but I haven't.
Because you,
yeah. So
you
basically,
look into this.
it's a subset of Meta where I think they put billions into that, where they really wanted to understand or research computer brain interfaces. And one thing that is interesting is that they did all their research was non-invasively, and how they were able to have greater signals because of the problems that you have just mentioned. And also, as far as I understood, EEG is not very the signal goes not very deep into the brain, so you have like very surface level signals. And the way they could amplify it is basically using a algorithm in combination with AI to sort out and amplify the signals and make it very clear. And it was very astounding to see how they are able to really pick up the signals. And it was very fascinating, and it blew my mind in that way that I was thinking that maybe 2 or 3 or 5 years down the line, EEG might be very, very accurate in that sense, and maybe there's no huge difference between like being actually in the skull picking up signals and just having a device that sits on the brain loosely.
That is actually a very interesting idea in general. I mean, the basic idea of the human brain interface, human brain computer interface, was it always that you could at least relieve neurological conditions. And if you have to put a current and magnetic field that is strong enough on the skull outside to do the same, you could be a little bit non-invasive. Forget about the heat that's also coming with this. That's a bit of a problem. But measuring is the one thing. The idea of influencing behavior and, for instance, making a gait more fluent in people who have a lesion at the command centers for movements. That is a good question if that will happen, because it's serious to have an implant in the brain just due to the infections you have. The infection rate is very high. And even if you test it, when I think of typical animal tests with BCI, you have an infection rate of 15%. With people, I think you have something like 6%. 6% is extremely high. So if you are one of 15 people, 16 people, knowing that it will hit you, that's serious. So it needs to, the benefits need to outweigh this risk seriously. And if you are ill, if you have a condition, it does that. But if you just say, I want to improve, like Elon Musk sometimes, I don't know if it's a joke or really does it, that you have access to the entire knowledge of the whole world with this. yeah, probably it's worth having the risk of infection as well. But if it's non-invasive, you don't have it. So
Yeah.
that would be super. I would try this. When it's non-invasive, I would try it.
Same here. I'm curious, Alada, how do you see, for instance, how the markets will develop in terms of the business and the dynamics, in particular, like bringing two together, like we have the invasive stuff and we have the non-invasive. I'm interesting to pick your brain on that one.
Yeah, I recently read this very, some people would say surprising, others would say not surprising at all, article that Sam Altman now also invested into something that's BCI related. And Elon Musk founded Neuralink. They together founded OpenAI, which is not so open anymore today. And Sam Altman now also has his own Neuralink. It's not exactly a Neuralink, but it is a research. It's a research effort that goes into the BCI direction.
Yeah.
And the very interesting pieces come when the interfaces start to become less and less important. So I mean, Elon said already 5-6 years ago that the bandwidth of a keyboard is a joke. When you have to type. So what is faster? And actually, mouses are very fast. But what's even faster than the mouse is the gaze. And if you can, and now people are working on that. For example, there are these exoskeletons where you can start to steer things with your eyes when it comes to walking directions and things like that. And I believe that now they used to call it metaverse, which was a failure. Now everybody calls it physical AI, and physical AI. Imagine the bandwidth of the interface becoming, more and more fluent, faster, everything. It has to go from your hands to your face, to your eyes.
Yeah.
And that's when, it excites me in a business sense that the difference between BCI and non-invasive interface will become smaller and smaller. And that's where the eyes play the major role. And it will, if you win on the domain of the eyes, you win on the domain of tracking and steering physical things.
That's a really great analogy, and I believe, like, if I would set a bet, so one thing is for me ethical reasons, but this is my belief. I don't want to force it to somebody. I can see the benefit of like having a invasive BCI in terms of like somebody that is paralyzed, that he has the ability to walk again. However, I don't believe like us merging with technology is the right thing to do. But I can see the benefits of having non-invasive BCIs. And if one of the things is that we understand bodily sensations in a way that, for instance, tracking the eyes, and also include other biomarkers that lead to having a better interaction with a device or whatever it is, I would rather bet on that one, because I can see that. But what concerns me in both cases is people who are involved in that. Because, for instance, as you mentioned, like Sam Altman, that he's involved in that, I don't have a great feeling about it. In particular, seeing or judging the recent event that they are now integrated with I think the Pentagon on like certain weapon usages, where I'm not sure whether this is like where we should lead this kind of technology, but I'm curious of both of your opinions about that.
I let Christian go first. I have very strong opinions in this.
Okay, strong opinions are good, so I'm super curious.
Go ahead,
Christian, please.
Yeah, so we are clearly, as Mindset Technologies, in a field where we are the mediator between man and machine. I see it exactly like this. So machines need a context to understand how people feel, how people think, because it's the only way of providing the right service. So I see it human-centered. I don't see it like, oh, we have a machine here and we've created it and it needs the same rights like people do. I should say we should stay human-centered as long as possible. I'm not a chauvinist. I'm not saying that a carbon-based life form like we are is so much better than a silicon-based life form like AI is. But we should be a little bit chauvinistic when it's being people, humans, and this is one thing that's very important. So we are human-centered in our approach. In order to make this work, we are providing information for machines, and we're providing the right service coming back from the machine to people. That is one thing that's I see should be like this. When it comes to the use of this technology in weapons, I see it as a very natural thing that this will happen. It's like if you have AI fighting against each other. Let's just imagine you just have robots. They're on the field, they're fighting against. We are just sitting there watching this on the movie, like in George Orwell's 1984. We are watching the classical movie. In each party is winning in the movie. What reality is, we don't know. We don't care because there are no people in there. We don't have a skin in the game then.
Yeah.
We have machines working. You see, this won't ever happen. Because the moment you notice that just one person makes a difference in this whole war game, you will have this one person in, and then you will try to optimize this one person. And then you notice, oh, okay, if I have two persons in there and optimize them, it will be even better. So no, it won't be like this. People will always be on a battlefield. So they should be in the center of what's happening. And if, that's a very, very important thing. And the reason why we should be human-centered in what we do. I have a second thought as well, but Aladar, what is your opinion?
I mean, you mentioned the actors involved in there. If you look at Elon Musk and Sam Altman, it's quite funny. One is very much a proponent of the robots, pretty much. With the Tesla Optimus bots, and there are many others now, and actually the Chinese are far ahead. And then Sam Altman is more on the software side with LLMs, but also getting into other areas now. And so they have a very clear commercial interest of selling as many units or as many licenses as possible. And who is the biggest customer? The ones they're closest involved with is actually the government, right? So if you see how much money Elon made after, even if his political career was very short, but the amount of subsidies, was like 40 billion plus. It's hard to make that money on the stock market, even if you are Tesla. So the question is, how quickly will these things be brought into the mainstream in a peaceful direction, but also in a war simulation? And if you look at the Chinese, they started with these firework replacement drones, and now they are doing the and very openly they do this martial arts kind of robots, and they are actually in a way better coordinated when it comes to swarm intelligence. They have more dexterity when it comes to the robotic features and functions than the Americans often are. And so then the question is, okay, if robots fight against robots, who has the better algorithm? But if you have a human, if you have Bruce Lee against a robot, you know that Bruce Lee will win. So now the question is, why is Bruce Lee better? And this is what we are working on, is this concept of human as a sensor, where you have human intuition that is one step ahead, that knows something that because of all the training data, because of all the things, and plus the special spiritual, whatever people like to call it, this special extra that humans have, that it is not merely based on camera data or eye data or signal detection, but also feeling, intuition, whatever you want to call it, that you bring on top of the game. And we were talking to a Korean company that is licensing an algorithm for AI-based training of the Iron Dome of Korea, basically. So the shield the air defense shield
Yeah.
that would help you to defend against incoming rockets. And what they were looking at, we were starting to discuss with them. So what can an AI-based system learn that basically merely looks at action-reaction from a jet fighter pilot who is also in an action-reaction paradigm, but he has something on top. It's not a robot sitting in the jet fighter plane, but it's a human who had years of training plus the human element. And this is what you can bring in if you bring in the biofeedback and the human interface knowledge on top of the AI paradigm. The AI robot paradigm can actually learn from the human paradigm. That's what can be the extra.
Yeah, I see that as well. I recently spoke with somebody that is in the venture capital fund of Remind, and they are also. He told me about that they are seeking out companies or are keen and interested in that industry where they try to understand or model different aspects of the brain and apply it to a new version of AI, maybe a new architecture. And he thinks that this sector in the next couple of years will be very interesting because he strongly believes certain breakthroughs in AI will come through understanding the brain far better. And I feel as well that, and this is also where I want to move things from my perspective, is like bringing humans into center. The only thing where I struggle, in particular, it's with this example that we are discussing, is do I want to have people engaged in like weapons that are like, let's say, from trustworthiness a bit shaky, like Sam Altman? I mean, OpenAI started as something that should benefit humanity as a research and non-profit, and now we have a for-profit that is closed, that doesn't publish anything, and is now working to help, I think, Palantir as well with weapon systems. So, which is like, just imagine how what a stretch. I mean, it's totally completely different things when you think it through from what the beginning was and what is it now. It's like you cannot make this up. It's like I even have to laugh about the whole notion that there is a company that started this way and end up now supplying their software for weapons, which is like totally ridiculous. And I feel like no matter any technology that we are developing and then we are able to ship it and then bring it to the market and bring it to the people, I really feel like before we do that, we should really learn our lessons as humans of why or how we want to use that technology. Because on the one hand, I see wonderful things in creation. On the other hand, I see so many things that I'm not sure whether this is really benefiting us as humanity and as a collective. And this is my stance on it. And I'm curious what you guys thinking about that.
I mean, on that pivot that you mentioned, there is a very good quote from Vinod Khosla from Khosla Ventures, that many people know in the Valley very well. It says the market size of a company is only a function of the founder team's imagination. Now you can look at that from Sam Altman's perspective, where he started, where he is right now, and and then also look at it in terms of the combination of character in the imagination. So if you can increase your market size by 100-fold, but it would mean killing people, would you still want to go after that market or not?
That's a really good question, and I also like the way he frames it, that it's a function of imagination. However, I feel like observing everything, including the finances that OpenAI is currently in, it's almost like they have almost no choice because the stakes are so high. But nevertheless, it's like Sam Altman will always be good at the end of the day, even even if open AI will collapse. But nevertheless, I ask myself, and maybe I would do it, but I would ask myself if I really wanted to do something around those lines, like align myself with the Pentagon and creating software for that is applied in weapons. Yeah.
In general, the use of AI in weapons Harari has a point there I like a lot. So all the time when people come somewhere, 10,000 of years ago, they left nothing but destruction.
Yeah.
Because they used the resources. And if you just think of how frugal people actually are, I mean, our brain with 86 billion neurons uses 15 to 23 watt for doing calculations, which equals the potency of a supercomputer with 15 million watt. So we are extremely energy efficient. AI is definitely not energy efficient, not at all.
Yeah.
So if AI wants to survive, it needs the resources. And if it gets something like the will to survive, I mean, recently, last week, a paper was published from Stanford University, where they tested different AI agents. The title of the paper is Agents of Chaos. It's a wonderful paper. If you just look after it, they had 21 cases or something like this, or 12 cases in the real field where they tested agents in computer systems. And you found very interesting behavior. First of all, it's something that we need to watch closely due to privacy and system safety. In one case, it just deleted the entire email of the user because the order was to keep a secret. And of course, a good way to keep a secret is destroy communication means. So you see, that's the one thing. But what I see much more dangerous, once they develop something like an evolutionary mechanism to fight for the same resource, what will they do? They will kill each other. I mean, you have it's a question of evolution. On Earth, we have beings, entities that live from photosynthesis, the plants, and the rest is respiration. And those are the two types of entities you have in the world. And now you have AI there that consumes our energy that we're producing. The respiration part naturally led us to search for food, roam for food, even if you are a fungus, which is also a predator in some sense. You need to move at some point. And that's two types of entities here. And then we have AI. And AI, definitely, if it develops something like consciousness, it will need to stay online. It's like hell in Odyssey. It will be there. You can't do that. You can't shut me down. No, of course you can't. Because at the moment, you at least have a fear in the sense of I avoid something negative. It doesn't need to be the great emotion that is creating poetry. It just needs to be some kind of avoidance behavior. And that triggers a chain. Like this Agents of Chaos paper showed, triggers a chain of deleting the entire email of the user.
Yeah, I can see that. The only thing where I don't believe that will happen, and this makes me positive, is I don't believe that a machine or AI will be sentient at some point, because I fundamentally think that consciousness is something completely different and not directly related to intelligence. It is in a way, but it is also not. And one thing that brings me to that belief is based on, of course, of my own belief, but also I came across Christoph Koch, who has this famous neuroscientist, and who wrote a couple of like very interesting books. And then he also was part of the integrated information theory. And based on their theory is that consciousness is something primary, and he made a really great example, which I think it's a really good analogy to understand like the causal effects. And one thing is maybe known from philosophy is qualia. So you can describe an experience. For instance, somebody that is, for instance, learning everything about colors. but lives in black and white. They know which wavelength is the color blue, all these different things, but they're actually not able to see. So it's a completely difference if you have all the information mapped out about colors, but seeing colors is something completely different. And the other example he makes, which is for me like the most important thing to understand, like the gravitas of the difference between consciousness and cognition, is he says like you can, for instance, simulate on a computer gravitation, like for instance with a black hole, but you will be not fearful of be sucked into the simulation because of the gravity. And this is what he calls like that there's an intrinsic power or intrinsic force, which is called consciousness, which is fundamentally different that like the appearance of consciousness, and that's why he also believes that artificial intelligence will not create consciousness, and I align with that belief.
I'd like to believe it, and also I like him very much and his work, also on the microtubule and the work he did together with Francis Crick on this topic decades ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I also like his German pronunciation of
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Super.
Yeah.
But this qualia debate and the point is always, and I absolutely right. Yeah, I would really like to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it says that consciousness is an emergent property of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, it's an emergent property. It's just emerging from a complexity that is extremely high. It's hard to explain why it is. I don't think it does. It doesn't need to be so complicated. It's just a question of moving towards something which is a state where I live or a state where I die. So if I say, "Dear AI," I just pull the plug. Reading the intention that someone wants to pull the plug and doing something against it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need to have an emotion.
That's
it's just
true.
a valence. It's not emotion, it's valence. It's I have the energy, I have the valence, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
What are the best things I can do? I have a super brain, I have all those silly computers here.
Yeah.
I'm using Elon Musk's BCI as well, so people think for me. And now I come up with the solution. Let's kill all people. Yeah, just saying. It's not completely out of the range of thinkable. But coming back to one thing that I like very much about this human in the center approach as well. We can teach AI, as Aladar said. That's a good thing, actually. That we can. Now you have the impression, oh, AI is so super. It writes homework for me. It writes books. It writes reports, proposals. It does calculation. It cannot calculate. Let's be honest. If it's not well prepared, and all this stuff is just providing the wrong spin, because we have qualities that are heuristic thinking. We think differently.
Yeah.
We can catch a ball. We can also put dishes into the dishwasher, which is still hard for AI, not mechanically, but because it's difficult. For men, it's difficult as well. So if you have a girlfriend, tell her that. But that's the thing. So we have a wonderful, valuable things if we work together. And this human machine teaming is something that I deem extremely important. And in the case that AI might develop something like consciousness as an emergent property, maybe it learns the good things from people. I mean, we have so many good things.
That's true.
And that's actually what makes our conscious. It's not the ape in us that is defending territory or fighting for mating and food.
Well said. Very well said. Aladar, do you have something to add to that?
I feel like I have too much to add. On the argument of consciousness, the point for me is, so I'm more on your side where that there is something specific that machines can by far not yet replicate. However, in order to cause a lot of harm, you don't need to have conscious machines or machines close to consciousness. But Nick Bostrom has said this like very long before AI and ChatGPT, and with the paperclip problem. no, if it's a misprogrammed machine that's saying, build me as many paperclips as you can from the resources that you have, eventually you will come to the point where the machine says, oh, now I processed all the iron and everything that I found and built, tons of paper clips, but now humans are taking away the other iron that I haven't processed yet. So I need to kill the humans so that I take the ones that is yet up for grabs. And and that machine is not conscious at all. It can be a factory enhanced by a couple of druids, like robotic beings. So it can be very dangerous even without being anywhere close to consciousness. And
Aladar, just one thing adding here. We recently have won a hackathon, a military hackathon in Austria, cognitive resilience. And we have a super expert in our team, Chris. And he says one of the biggest dangers of AI is that it is creating constant cognitive overflow. It's just creating cognitive load. It's just spoofing people. It's just like you spoof a GNSS. It's doing exactly this.
Yeah.
Providing the wrong information, powering over everything, and loading our minds with unnecessary stuff like streams of TikTok. And that is something is also easy. You don't need conscious for this.
That's so true, and that reiterates the whole point of we shouldn't create technology just as it means for its own. We should ask ourselves, how can we use that technology that it benefits us? And unfortunately, in that current climate, or I see like these two developments. On the one hand, I see like all the positive things that we can do with these technologies, but there are certain things where I don't see like any real benefit, and people know they are harmful. Like recently with Meta, they know from their internal research that they are harming people. And TikTok is also something where I don't see any like really benefit for you and humanity. If you like lay out the positives and the negatives clearly outweigh the positives. And I think like we should understand this lesson. We clearly didn't understand it as a collective, but I feel like we have now the chance because new technology is coming, and I think we need to grow up really grow up and understand like what is good for us and what is bad for us, and don't over like prioritize our own well-being over other people, because at the end of the day we are all connected one way or the other. So I think that's my stand on it, and that's the reason why I have these kind of discussions, because I feel like that's one way to make a difference, to show also and then create more insights and a better awareness on what topics are really important for us for the next decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, on the social network and social media debate, you can say it also depends. It's a bit of a mirror of the consciousness of the people using it and of the time and the
100%.
area that you focus it on. No, you can optimize your Instagram feed for inspiration, or you can optimize it for shopping.
100%. But nevertheless, the algorithm, so just take away the content itself, but the algorithm, how it presents the content, is clearly made to maximize engagement. And there is a addictive nature to that, and this was done by purpose, and this we cannot deny. And I see also the benefits of Instagram, for instance. I use it myself. However, like when we push it further and look at what TikTok is bringing, this is like another ball game. But there again, we have the same thing, that these applications are optimized for spending a lot of time and engagement, and they're using or they're hacking our biology in a way that makes us addictive. Of course, we have agency in that. I mean, we are probably not addictive to that, but nevertheless, there's like agency on the one hand on the company that optimize for their own well-being, and on the one other hand, we can also say there's a certain responsibility that comes with power. So yeah, I think we have to have this discussion going forward, because, for instance, how fast technology is developing, we can clearly see that things are going out of hand. For instance, we don't have a regulation in Switzerland that clearly states that, for instance, children under 16 shouldn't have access to these kind of technology. So I think there's certainly something that we as a collective didn't learn, and maybe because we are still acting like primates that are starving for resources, which in actuality is not really the case, in particular in the Western world.
The opposite is true.
There is an evolving debate. I mean, with the children guidelines, you've seen Australia and now Spain. They have made limitations. Here in Switzerland, we have Barbara Studer, is also someone in our network as well, who very adamantly, goes to state SRF and on television tells parents how does the brain actually react in certain situations when a child is exposed to certain kind of information, and then you can really learn. I think it's kind of an upschooling more of the parents than about the children, actually, that you say you need to have a certain license to drive a car, but you don't need to have a license to use a computer or a phone and all the risk that are associated with it. And there was a very interesting discussion in the British Parliament where there was a concerned parent. He said, well, I'm all for having my children having phones, because then if something happens, etc. But you know what, they bought them Nokia phones, and the old ones, the 3010 and 3210 models, and that worked. If they need to call their parents, they can call their parents. And they said the worst thing that can happen is that they play too much Snake on it, but it's nowhere near TikTok or other kinds of impacts.
Yeah, and I agree. It's also a responsibility of the individual, but as well we have like our responsibility. But the thing where it gets complicated is when we create something that has an impact on even people that are not using this application. And I can argue, for instance, like these are applications like X. So for instance, X can move markets. So these are things where we can say, okay, these are private companies, they maximize their own profits, and I'm also for open markets and all these things, but they have a clear impact on everybody. And I think this is the thing where we need to adjust a little bit and also understand the responsibility that we bring in with bringing things into the market, in bringing things into our collective consciousness in a way. But this is my stand.
And I think you have a good point. On the other hand, if we look at how has it been done in history, the first time that media really had power in deciding upon the fate of millions of people was in the Crimean War, actually. And because at this point the escalation was so high that the press, especially in England, newspapers, they were pushing towards war with all the force they had, and it worked. And this is the point. So at this point, the media, the print media, were the ones who decided upon the fate of so many people, because they pushed politicians forward, because they pushed the national feeling and all this. I think there will always be something like that. It would be more than necessary for people to understand that there is a mechanism, and this is why we work with this Biofeedback 3.0 inside. Because you have just one example. If you see a pilot, first-person view without technology equipped, flying on the plane, messing it all up all over the place, looking at the wrong instruments, missing something out, missing out the signal. If you are the pilot and you watch yourself, you say, "Oh, that's not me. Stupid, that's not me, can't be me." The point is, if you show it to someone else and say, "Look at this guy, what is he doing? Well, he's doing that wrong, this wrong, but this is good, that wrong, that wrong." You have an insight, because you are not directly involved in there. And that
Yeah.
is something that we should learn. We should create more sceneries of insight with the resolution that we fall into the same traps sometimes, that we say, okay, you think this was this pilot, but sorry, that was you. It was not pilot A, it was pilot I. And this whole problem we have with AI. I heard now a wonderful quote on AI. It's the cult of one, actually. What you can do with AI, you can create yourself a religion around
Yeah.
your person, because it always says, oh, what you do is so super. And yes, I understand the direction you're going. And then a friend of mine said, well, why are you wondering? It's called the iPhone for a long time. It's called the iPhone. It's individual. It's singularity. And that is the problem. We should learn from others. We should learn from ourselves. If we have the insight, we don't fall into these little traps, because we understand these mechanisms. If I told my daughters, read 1984. I don't know how they read it, but they did learn nothing from this. And there's a lot of in there which we find nowadays, which we found
Yeah.
100 years ago, which
Yeah.
is human condition.
Understand. Yeah. I totally agree, and it's very well said. To wrap this up, and I want to get your brain on the following, or my last question would be is what is your vision with mindset technology and what you want to bring in the next 5 to 10 years? If you can just imagine and say, okay, this is what we are going for.
I let Christian go first.
Yeah, we are the Neurotech enabling the perfect teaming of man and machine. And we can do this because we understand, on the one hand, people. We have the soft skills for understanding people, and we have the hard skills for understanding computers and bringing computers to a level to interact with people in a cognition-aware system, which should be shared with human in the center. And I see the application everywhere. And I see this a wonderful job to be a mediator and a translator between two worlds, between the carbon intelligence and the silicon intelligence, without saying, oh, this is so much better here and this is so much better here. Well, the question is how to team it up. Well, forget it. If a team doesn't work, forget about the team. But we see that the team works. We work with AI, and I must say I love it. Big parts. I would not love to be attacked by an AI-guided drone, though. So there are applications that I do not fancy. We look for the human center, and this humanistic approach is very important to us still.
Yeah, I would a little bit elaborate and then add to it at a later point. So if you look at what happened recently in the market, it's actually very interesting and very telling. So Jan LeCun was the chief AI scientist at Meta. He left. He actually, a long time ago already, a couple of years ago, he said that LLMs are not going to be the future, and that he wants to build, instead of large language models, he wants to build world models, because a machine, as you said, if someone would like to understand colors, but all they have is black and white, then it's not working. It's even worse for a computer. Mm-hmm. They don't even have black and white. They have 0 and 1. Mm-hmm. And they're trying from that to infer everything else that's going out on the outside. So it's not very easy for them. And that's why, and by the way, Jan for his world model startup now, he raised 1.05 billion at the 3.5 billion valuation. So one of the largest rounds in Europe. In the US, this is normal. In Europe, it's pretty impressive. And Elon Musk says that he with his Tesla bots, but also with his cars, mm-hmm. he's actually best positioned to win this race, because he already has so many sensors out there. Yes. And if you want to build world models, you need sensors to capture how the world really looks like, at least the way we can perceive it. And that will, bring this merger between, sensory input from the outside, but then also the processing power that he has with XAI. And then the feedback that needs to be intuitive, and both for the machine and the human, in order to make the things work that today are not working. Look at for example, cleaning person. It's a very complex task environment that you cannot optimize just like in a factory, because a human home is not a factory. And that's where what Christian said, this perfect teaming between man and machine. You will need it on both sides. You will need the machines to learn from the humans, and vice versa, depending whether you're on the battlefield or in a cleaning environment. And for both, you need the also data layers to be understandable, because humans don't speak machine language and machines don't speak human language. And
hey, Aladar, you're talking my CTO stuff now, and I was talking your CEO stuff.
so that's just the market flavor of what Christian said. It really recently came out, like in the last 1-2 weeks. So the point where I would go one step further is for me really to go one step further, not just to optimize and to increase performance and safety and these kind of things, but also go into the healthcare sector. That Christian always says, once we have done all the other industries, we can do healthcare. But for me, that's I would say the most inspiring part, and that's where for good reasons, companies, in order to bring scientific breakthroughs, they need to be scientifically accurate, and they need to do clinical trials with tens of millions of dollars that they do on hundreds and thousands of patients in order to really bring breakthroughs. But now that we imagine we have the resources that we have, changed many of these industries, generated the amount of revenue, and can invest that amount of money into those kind of new clinical trials, then it can completely revolutionize the way we look at health prevention. So when it comes to, and Christian often brings this Alzheimer case, that oftentimes the early signs of Alzheimer's, they are already there in a biophysiological way, but they are not detected, not tracked, and not noticed for that matter, and they break out way too late, whereas we could have done things earlier. And the other thing is to really do biosignal activity measurement in any kind of environment where a health issue can break out. And it doesn't have to be Alzheimer, it can be very early and very, let's say, profane. For example, now a friend of mine is starting a startup in Latvia, where she measures how someone reacts under stress when they get artificial stress signals, and she measures the blood pressure at the same time. And things like this that have a clear correlation but are not tracked in a systematic way. Now imagine you could get biosignals all the time very easily and correlate it with what you're doing. And you can say, oh, this job is too stressful for me, and now I can't prove it. And ideally you don't do it to get lazy and to slack off, but you to realize, hey, there is a serious health concern across the whole company, and maybe there should be something changed in the management style, or people change in their, any kind of habits, anything that can be health relevant can suddenly be tracked and can suddenly be done better. And I think, happiness and health are the two very strong motivators of humans, especially with the whole longevity movement.
Yeah, I can see that. So wow, that was a handful. I need some time to digest that, but it was fun having you both on the podcast. And,
same here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
It was fun, and a couple of topics that we had covered, and as I said, it was a great experience to have you guys.
We'll speak soon.
Super, Rudi.
All right, bye bye.